afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Hunt's office and our latest event, Practical Actions for Sustainable Office Spaces. My name is Jim Bronbier, and as Sales Director of Hunt's office, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to our home and act as your host today alongside Egan Hunt, our founder. You can see the panellists aren't quite here yet, but they will be introduced in a moment. Where we'll be looking at practical ways in which we can make a difference right now to our own corporate workspaces, as well as looking forward towards the destination of net zero. The members of the panel today have been handpicked to offer expert views from across the different disciplines involved in delivering commercial workspaces. Their collective experiences range from real estate consulting and construction through to interior design and even the certified measurement of a company's carbon footprint.
From my perspective, it is believe the hype really. The hype around ESG has been monumental. I mean, it started years ago and it was all talk. We've seen some real growth in the area. Our business, I know Savills are probably the same, have created businesses or within their consulting teams for ESG as a specialism. The recruitment of those people over the last 12, 18 months has been heavily driven. So there's obviously a need and a demand for it. Our customers are asking for that advice. And asking for that support, same with Savills and some of the other businesses here. For me, from a sort of construction side, new build, I think we've got the legislation, they have to meet that. We deal with a lot of customers who've still got old stock buildings that they retain, that are half empty, that they may be looking at leases and negotiating on or moving out of. It's those buildings where we're looking at refurbishments, where I still see a lack of budget allocated to actually put the right products in. We're still seeing a traditional sort of procurement drive cost out sort of approach for some of those sort of older stock buildings. That's not completely across the board, but that is the majority of the cases that we do see for that.
Well, I'm a massively optimistic person. And when you, I think we're in a great place because, and maybe it's because I've only been embedded fully in the world of a sustainability professional role for a couple of years. I've still got optimism that we're heading the right way. I know when I talk to people that have been in sustainability for longer, you come across a lot of people that are very frustrated at the fact that we're still just talking about it and not enough is happening. But my observation is that a switch has flicked post-COVID and more action is being taken. I mean, the fact that we're all here today is a great barometer for the fact that people are really properly engaged now. So I'm very optimistic. I also think what's nice about ESG is it takes a slightly broader view and it's starting to introduce businesses to the idea that they need to think much more broadly, not just about how the social side is what's happening for their people or the businesses, how they interact with businesses locally around them, but on a global scale as well. You know, initiatives like the UN sustainability goals are getting more and more businesses to think how our actions actually affecting people globally. You know, the weather changes that we're seeing at the moment, it was the Welsh news yesterday, there was a lot of flooding. You know, we've had a tremendous amount of rain over the last couple of days and, you know, people are very annoyed because a couple of A roads are closed and there was a house in Clydach that was flooded. And I contrast that to, you know, the same situation overseas in Libya where 10,000 people are currently unaccounted for because of flooding. And I think, you know, that's a really good thing about ESG and things like the UN sustainability goals. We're thinking much more broadly than ever before.
I agree. I think there is a considerable amount of optimism in the fact that every business that I engage with absolutely turns their face towards how they can achieve their own ESG goals, how they can push forward with sustainable, whether it's refurbishment or fit outs. I think there is the large organisations have very much been able to plan their routes to their net zero pathways and are actively on board, and that stems from the buildings they're selecting, right the way through to how they're operating the buildings. The accreditation system that we have, whether it's BREEAM, WELL or Neighbours, is actively pushing us forward. But as with these things, it's a journey, and we know we're out of step. We know we tend to be a bit behind. Every time a new standard comes out, it's already a bit out of date. But the wealth of industry that is now really pushing us and not allowing those out of date statuses to remain that way, I think is incredibly encouraging. I still see a tension, especially amongst smaller clients, that having to weigh up the cost flow and cash flow with trying to put the right goals and principles in place. There is still definitely a tension there that we as an industry need to really help them achieve things for. So that's what I'm seeing as a picture at the moment.
I know 12 years ago when Ian first joined, we had a lot of buildings, very old buildings, not energy efficient, etc., etc. So Ian and the property team made sure we came out of those buildings when the leases ended, and we have much more energy efficient buildings. And the team are driving some really good innovative projects at ITV, a couple in Leeds around biodiversity and rainwater collection, things like that. So, but I can see there's a huge amount going on in the industry, and Ian always says to me, sometimes we do need to stop and pat ourselves on the back and say, actually, we are all trying, we're all on the same page, we're all trying to achieve this, but there's still a lot to be done, and we just need to keep driving that forward as, individual companies and with our partners as well. Yeah.
Start selecting sustainable products, understanding how they can be recycled, repurposed and resold or reused, and understanding the complete life cycle of everything that we're putting into buildings as a contractor to make sure that it's not just buy new, throw away. So that's my understanding of circular economy. And in terms of the future, all manufacturers, different products across the whole spectrum, from concrete to rubberised seals to windows, all of that, every single aspect, they're moving forward all the time in terms of their R&D and how they're thinking differently about how products will be used or treated when a customer is finished with them, as opposed to being thrown away or discarded, actually becoming of value and continuing their value through the extended life of the materials.
With good data, you can then say, right, this is where we're going, this is what we'd like to achieve, these are the targets we're setting, how we're going to do it. And another thing you might do is that some projects take time, and they might take years. We do loads of work with the Eden project, and we were talking yesterday down at Eden about Eden Wycombe and taking all the work and learnings they got out of the amazing Eden project down near St Austell and applying that to Morecambe. But you don't want to wait to the end of a project to talk about it. Yeah, what you really want to do is have almost like live updates to your case study. Otherwise, case studies you get to the end, 3 years time, and it's a bit. Right, we could have done with learning that along the way. So what we're looking at doing, and maybe you could do also, is talk about your project on an ongoing basis, so people can learn from our mistakes and also where we're doing really, really well. So just think about that communication you might provide out to other organisations to say, right, I'm doing a refurb or a refit or a new build or something. This is what I did at stages along the way, and communicate that openly and transparently, because then it helps other people at the same stage learn from what you're doing, and it cuts out a lot of wasted time.
Examine your budget and understand what it's going to do. If you're looking at refurbishment, for instance, and I know we all have an issue with trying to retain the best talent, and quite often the workplace, our environment is one of the tools that we use. And so we would all love our spaces to look as beautiful as this sort of space. But actually, to really look at a truly sustainable refurbishment, most of the money is going to go to the places you can't see. It's going to go into this, what happens in the ceiling. And you need to know that on the onset. You need to know where that budget is going to go. You need to be able to put in what's hard and fast red lines, because further down the line, that's where you're going to have the pressure, is to VE those things out, the things that are really actually going to make a difference. And I see many organisations and projects come under this real pressure of, well, let's step back. What the business needs first is X, and it's the sustainable or the environmental aspects that start to get pared down because there is that tension. So be firm with your budget right off. Understand where it's going to go, understand how you're going to spread it, and then you can move forward from a sound foundation.
If you can measure it, you can manage it, right? So I think people are kind of wanting to go from maybe not quite zero, but from somewhere close to zero to perfectly sustainable in one jump, and it's not going to happen, But at least if you start measuring, or if you use the data that's available to try and start measuring the impact of a new project, what that interior is now, what is the carbon footprint per square metre of this building, I wonder? I mean, I know that there's data available. We could sit down and work it out. So, and then we can plan to improve that over the next 5 years. So for me, it's kind of using the data that's available to measure and improve.
Both of you emphasized on leaving time to do stuff. So both of those things need the proper consideration before you dive deep into a project. You need the time to consider the budget properly so that you have a budget sufficiently de-risked so that the key things don't get value engineered out. And also you need time to engage with the stakeholders. It's leaving yourself at that time.
I said there must have been 30 ironing boards for all these productions. They had bought them. I said, surely we can have this sort of bank of stuff that people can share. It's a bit like Vinted and all the rest of them, isn't it? That when a production, I'm a celebrity going out, or Love Island, we need 10 ironing boards, great, there's 10 available, we'll take them out and bring them back. If you don't bring them back, we have to buy more. But ironing boards was just one of many examples, props, tea urns, all the stuff they use on location. So we're setting up this bank, and there's a lot to be said for sharing of stuff, not just reusing it, sharing as well. So it's nothing like on the scale of what these guys are doing. But I think sometimes the small stuff can actually make a real difference, and they're loving it. It's improved. They're not spending as much money. It's better for the environment. It ticks all the boxes. So, but we had to get a good system in place to manage it. But it's a bit like an eBay. It's not ITV Bay.
We get excited about regeneration and the idea that every business can be regenerative. So they are. Get to net zero, but what does it mean to be sort of effectively climate positive? What does that look like, where you're sequestering more carbon through everything you do than you're emitting, right? So we would consider that to be regenerative. We consider, social impact and social justice. What do you do in and around that with your organisations, your services and your products? How do you operate as a business so you can be regenerative for society and the communities that we serve? And the same for nature. So what does it mean to be nature positive for your company, and how are you measuring the biodiversity associated with your business and products? And so I think over the next 10 years, for us, it's about working with organisations that might have that type of vision to say, we want to be regenerative. And we might not know exactly how to go about that right now, but actually we want to get on with it, and set that as a vision for the organisation for this critical 10-year period. It will involve innovation and transformation. But in actual fact, if we reposition this into something which is actually truly exciting and uplifting, it's much, much better than for our organisations than we might have actually heard from yesterday. We see this as something which is, the exciting stuff is shifting the world to be a better place, and we think we can do that one business at a time and not wait for policymakers. Don't wait for them, because there's no time to lose. So for us, the excitement is in this radical shift yeah, in the way that we live and work, and we can do that in every single one of our businesses, and we are already, but just step it up.
If I fall back on, put my designer hat on, because I'm still really passionate about materials, and I still work extremely closely with our design team to make sure that they're using the right stuff and designing it in the right way. So I think this is, the circular economy and where we're heading is driving some material innovations that are fantastically exciting. We've got lots of really interesting conversations about a couple of companies, one that are based in Wales, one that's in London, that make stuff out of mycelium. The mushroom, the kind of the bit of the mushroom that you don't see, the plant that lives underground. That is tremendously exciting. It's like how you can grow materials that are, acoustically absorbent and fire retardant, and mean that you don't have to rely on fossil fuels. So that's, stuff like that's really cool. We've started using a really interesting sustainability additive, which is made from literally residual waste, garbage that would be tipped into a landfill. There's an incredible Israeli company called UBQ that are turning that stuff into essentially a type of polymer that we can use in our products. So coming back around to our dude chair again, we've started using this stuff, which basically takes material out of landfill. It doesn't actually do that because the stuff never gets to landfill, you understand. So they divert it to they reconfigure the kind of organic elements in this, what is pizza boxes and nappies and chicken bones and stuff like that. And they make essentially a polymer that we can then put into task chairs. And when this stuff isn't going into landfill, it's not giving off loads of methane, because methane as a greenhouse gas is about 30 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. So it's, that's why we don't like landfills. It's tremendously carbon positive materials coming out now that are going to help us and other manufacturers bring down that carbon footprint.
We recently completed a project, well, probably about 3 months ago we finished. Customer had an issue. They had glazed facade, lovely building, glazed roof, atrium. They needed to replace the glazing on the atrium because it was leaking. They had problems with the gaskets. There was a design issue, all the other bits and pieces that generally go with that type of thing. They wanted to look at ESG. They wanted to look at energy. They wanted to generate some energy. They wanted to charge some batteries so they could use that to feed their EV charging for some of their staff vehicles. It's an initiative that the customer had. Great idea, brilliant thing to do. Putting solar panels on top of a roof that's 60% glass doesn't really work from an aesthetics point of view. I think the planning would have been tricky as well. So it's actually the largest project in Europe where we've got solar glass. So it's not as efficient as a panel would be, a standard panel that we install day in, day out all over, especially our logistics customers' roofs. But the PV cells are actually integrated within the glass. So they managed to get the best of both worlds. Yes, it did cost more money, but they achieved what they set out there as a client. It's amazing, really interesting, and it's great if you ask the questions, talk and communicate with the industry and people that you know. You can find these products, and we have innovation competitions and stuff within our business that our procurement teams run. So it's something that came out of that we managed to introduce to our customer. Obviously tested it first, got some feedback on that, but that's really, I think it's pretty snazzy really, to be honest, so I was quite interested in that.
Thank you very much for your attention. It's been an amazing conversation today, and thank you to the panel. And I think a round of applause to the panel would be great.